when Colin Powell set up the team, John Kerry and McCain formed little groups, and they all went to Southeast Asia. And they visited Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and you have to remember Laos and Cambodia were theoretically not involved in the war, but supported the North Vietnamese and the communists. And then if you know a little bit about Cambodia and a little bit about Laos, they purged the populace. There were countless thousands, and they estimate it even got into the millions of the populations that were re-educated or murdered. And in those groups, they figured that's where some of the prisoners were, and that's why they were never listed or accounted for and put on the listing with the North Vietnamese, even though they knew they were there and they were negotiating with both Cambodia and Laos. Now, the two groups went to the same locations all over the country over there and spent quite a while over there investigating, looking for what they call human contact with prisoners. And they talked to thousands of people that had seen prisoners, and some of them fed prisoners and everything else, and knew the names and things like that. So that human intelligence was given to both sides. Then they had a causal method. Causal was a different way of evaluating where the person was shot down and would they have been seen by the human contacts side of the. And John Kerry refused to accept the human and was forced his team and everything to accept only the causal. And the causal was word of mouth. How good was that word of mouth? We never could actually verify it. We never had the pictures, or it was third party. So the teams got together, they went back to testify what they found, and they cut the funds off early, so they never really got to finish their tour and everything. So when they cut the money off, Congress said, the war is over. They determined and made a statement, and they sent a telegram to all of the POW women that said, your husband is now declared dead. And when Mary Lou got that, Harley Hall's wife got that message. She contacted the department, the Defense Intelligence, it's DIA, and I forget the exact acronym. I'm going back 60 years and reiterating this story. So that it was all taking place back from the time that they got shot down in 73, when the war ended, and the POWs some of them were captured as early as 1965, when John Kennedy sent the first groups of advisors over to Vietnam. It was July, when they had the gunboats theoretically made an attack on one of our destroyers. But I'm back to Congress. Mary Lou's asked to see all of the Defense Intelligence Agency documents under the Freedom of Information Act. She had to write numerous letters along with all the wives demanding the same thing. And they invited 3 of the wives and Mary Lou to go. And I have the name of the agent from DIA. And that was, his name was Shields, and he was the DIA, he was the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Shields, at the time. And he was the one that set up the CAICO team to notify all of the KIA wives, killed in action wives. I'm going to refer to my notes for a moment. POW Frank Anton wrote a book on called the General Talking Points, and he discussed a lot of this litigation that went on at the time when he wrote his book. And he was told by the Defense Intelligence Agency to shut up and not publish the book. They didn't want the wives to know or have hope that they were still alive. One of my other notes here: if the North Vietnamese admitted existence of a prisoner, it started the clock for his release. They had to maintain the prisoner control, and they couldn't declare him. If they declared him dead, they had to produce the body. And in the case of Hall, they never declared him as being captured, so they never had to admit they'd had him or produce the body. And he was what they classed later on as a prized trophy. That classification, they call him a prized trophy, I'll get into in a little bit. I have another one of my rough notes. One of the members from the Defense Intelligence Agency, and I couldn't get the name on him because he would have been fired, but he allowed the 3 wives and Harley Hall's wife to see the files for a half hour in Washington. And he invited them in, took them to see the files, and she said they were not allowed to take pictures of it. They were not allowed. They were given 30 minutes to look at them and scan, and the stack of literature was a foot thick. So they thumbed through it as fast as they could, and they couldn't take any notes, and they had to swear that they would not publish anything and would not give out his name. Whether that name has ever been researched or found out, I don't know. But there again, when she went to testify to Congress and she wanted to talk about that file, that's when Kerry told her to shut up and sit down. Now, I had a little bit of a trouble. John McCain is one of our heroes. He was shot down in an A6, and he spent quite a time. He was treated pretty badly over there because he was an admiral's son. And fortunately, they knew they captured him, and they tried to use him as their method to get early release and stuff. But McCain ran for president, and before he did that, when the committee got all together, they were told, the war is over, there's no funding, quit talking about it, and McCain never published all of his side of the investigation that he did with Kerry and the two teams when they went over to these 4 countries that they visited over there. And all of the information that they got from the 2 methods of the cause team and the human team. If he had pressured and gone against the president at that time, there may have been a continuation, and there may have been more POWs, and I say maybe because that's just my guess. Stephen Morris, a Harvard researcher who worked for the Central Committee of the Communist Party and had access to files in Russia. And Stephen Morris gave information to John McCain and to Kerry's teams, and that information was also given to Colin Powell, and it indicated that there were files in Russia as late as 1995 and 96 of holding interrogations on Harley Hall. So again, you wonder why none of that was ever given out and why it wasn't pressed and researched deeper. But once the president declared and Congress declared the end of the funding, that's when the nastygram went out that said all POWs were dead, and that's when they changed the method of payments and stuff to the wives.